Hey guys, before we get started, I just wanted to thank all of our Patreon subscribers and to remind you that you too can help support us by heading over to patreon.com/roadiefreeradio and jumping on the money train for as little as $1 a month to help keep this show rolling. Thank you guys in advance.
What's happening, roadies? This is Lauren Crowley.
This is Lid Shot.
What's happening, roadies? This is Arica Rust, and you're listening to Roadie Free Radio.
What's up, roadies? My name is Larry Milburn, and this is Roadie Free Radio, your VIP pass to meet and greet the stars behind the scenes of the music and film business. All right, what's happening, roadies? Welcome back to Roadie Free Radio. Another week, another fantastic episode here. This is your host, Larry, coming at you from a barn in Northwest Connecticut. This is episode 122. My guest this week is systems tech and front of house engineer Arica Rust, coming at us from the Bay Area in Northern California. What's going on, guys? How are we doing? Can I be honest with you guys? Can I for 1 second? It's fucking freezing back again in New England. Jesus, what is going on, man? It was 58 degrees or something last week for a couple of days. It was nice. Go for a walk in the country. And now it's cold again, freezing cold. And apparently there's like big snow coming our way. But listen, nothing compares to what's going on in the state of Washington with their snow woes. I call them snow woes. Little birthday shout out to former past guest and buddy and film composer Nate Barr. If you guys are fans of The Americans, phenomenal series that was on, Nate did all the music for that, as he's done for a lot of great shows. Happy birthday, Nate. I hope you're well. The flip side of that is that it was a rough week in Roadie land, and I'd like to send condolences out from the Roadie Free Radio family to the families of Todd Confessore, Frank Levy, and Bob Dallas. We lost three great ones. Three great roadies I did not know, and I did not have a chance to interview to share their stories. And I wish I had, because from what I've been reading on Facebook, these are three incredible guys who gave their life to the road and to the industry. So may you all rest in peace at the great gig in the sky. Speaking of great interviews and stories, we got some good ones, man. We got some good ones in the pipeline coming up. I'm not going to tell you who they are until the end of each episode, but they are phenomenal, and I'm excited to be sharing them with you. So end of February, beginning of March so far is shaping up real nice with some stories. So you're going to want to stay tuned. Head over to iTunes and subscribe if you have not done so already. You can also find us at Patreon. I'm sorry, not at Patreon. We did the Patreon plug already. That's enough of that. Spotify. You can find us at Spotify. Hopefully soon Pandora. But Spotify, Google Podcast, iTunes. Subscribe to all those places. I'm still thinking about the app, the Roadie Free Radio app, by the way, where you'll get all your shows in one place. I think I'm going to do it. I think this year is going to be the year. Mountain Jam. Woohoo! Mountain Jam's coming up, kids, June 13th through the 16th. They've officially decided to pop it at Old Bethel Woods, home of the original 1969 Woodstock. And that festival's coming back around. 50 years, man. Good Lord. I want to go. If anyone's got any juice to get this kid in to do some interviews about this stuff, let me know. And I'll be there. I'll do some stuff. Mountain Jam put on by Radio Woodstock and Warren Haynes. Speaking of shows, Capitol Theater is going to be hosting Big Head Todd and the Monsters and JJ Gray and Mofro. I'm still looking for someone in those camps that I can get down and interview. If anyone knows anybody in either the Big Head Todd or JJ Gray and Mofro camp, let me know, man. Two bands I love. I used to cover some Big Head Todd back in the day. And it'd be great to go see him live again and check out JJ Gray. I saw JJ Gray. I got hip to him at the Knitting Factory in Los Angeles around 2008, I believe it was. I went to a Mark Ford solo show with his band. I don't think it wasn't the Neptune Blues Band. I don't know who was backing Mark at that thing. Anyway, I saw Mark for the first time solo without the Crows. And J.J. Grey opened up. Guy started bawling in the middle of a song. I was blown away. Great stuff. So I'd love to see him again live, and I'd love to interview somebody on the crew. Not just make it about me going and have a good time. I want to do some work. I want to share some stories. Listen, I mentioned, I think it was last week, that you guys got to check out the show on Netflix, The Last Kingdom. I finished it. All 3 seasons. I just plowed through it in 2 weeks. And in truth, I think the first 2 seasons were only 8 episodes each. So this last season, when they got picked up by Netflix, they stretched it out to 10 episodes. Killer stuff. If you're into old school England and the Danes, you should check this out. Well worth it. Listen, we're sponsored today, my friends, by Stagehands Clothing out of Chicago. They are a husband and wife team. They've created the one-stop shop for backstage professionals who are always working hard, as you do, behind the scenes. And you count on high-quality, durable workwear, okay? These guys carry everything from men's and women's apparel and plenty of super cool gear to keep you ready for the next task at hand. Use the code RODIE. Get yourself 20% off your entire order over at Stagehands Clothing. And as I've said, they sent me a nice black sweatshirt. I wear it. It's super comfortable. I should have worn it today to keep me warm. I'm a little underdressed in the barn here, and I got to turn all the heaters off when I record so you don't hear crappy audio, which, look, I got to cop to something right now, by the way. This interview coming up with Arica Rust here in just a couple of moments. We're moments away. I had to do it at night. All right. It was just when our timing worked out. So it was like 9:00 at night. So I had to put together a quick setup in our family room, and listening back, my end sounds like crap. Her end sounds great. We did a Skype call. She sounds great. I just feel like I sounded like crap. And I was so tired because we had our son home for a couple of snow days and whatnot. And I was rolling solo, doing some dad life, that I was exhausted. And I don't feel like I was up to par in the smart question department. And Arica is a smart woman. So hopefully I don't come off as a total ass. But listen, Arica is a systems engineer, front of house monitor engineer for Sound on Stage up in Northern California, in Hayward, California. She's originally from Oakland, super smart. She's an expert in L-Acoustics, an advanced user in D&B audiotechnik system. She spent a brief stint at Bard College in New York City before she headed back to the Bay Area and finished up school on the West Coast and eventually found her way into the industry. We had a really good chat. Aside from my dumb questions, a couple of really, you know, when you're doing an interview, if you guys have ever done interviews and you just kind of throw out a question as it's coming out, you're like, God, you just sound like an asshole. I hope I don't, but I do my best, folks. I do my best. Listen, we're also sponsored today by giggear.com. Makers of the award-winning gig gloves and the newly released two-hand touch. Gig gloves are the best way to protect your most valuable asset on any gig, job, or show, your hands. When you're wearing gig gloves, there's practically no task that you can't do with your gloves on, keeping you safer and more efficient. And let me tell you something. I actually just used my phenomenal pair of black gig gloves. I had a shoot the other day out in the woods. And you put these gloves on, not only do you feel like you could just catch, a pass from Tom Brady and just bring it down to the end zone, but if you pop off the tips of the fingertips, you've got full access. You can use your fingertip. And I did that, and I used these things in the woods in a shoot that I was doing in the rain. They kept me warm, they kept me dry, but fully functional. And listen, for all of you front of house or monitor engineers out there, the two-hand touch that Gig Gear makes is an efficient and ergonomic solution that eliminates all of the problems of having to hold an iPad or a tablet by putting it right where production pros need it to be, directly in front of them. Now, look, if you use the code ROADIE over at gig-gear.com, you get 15% off your entire order. You could get the gloves, you could get the two-hand touch, and you're ready to go. You could call yourself an engineer and just head out and start mixing shows. That's all you need, right? You don't need to go to school. You don't need experience. You just need the gloves and this tablet holder, and you're good to go. gig-gear.com. Use the code ROADIE. Get yourself 15% off your entire order. Listen, let's get to it. Let's just get to Arica's interview because, like I said, she's a smart one, and it was exciting. It was fun. I love you guys. Stick with this one all the way through. Good stuff. Here we go. Miss Arica Rust.
Hit it. Call yourself a roadie. Call yourself a roadie. Call yourself a roadie.
The name like Arica Rust. How did you not become an artist?
I know, isn't that funny with the last name?
Yeah.
I get that every once in a while. It's funny too because my name's spelled with an A for a specific super dorky reason.
Oh, let's hear it.
So my sister's initials are DC, for Dariel Culver, and they wanted mine to be AC, so that together we're AC/DC.
Okay.
And the best part is it's actually not after the band. It's after alternating current and direct current. My parents did laser shows for a living before I was born.
Whoa. So how did we get to Rust though?
I technically have like a hyphenated last name.
Okay.
I've never used it my whole life pretty much.
Got it.
And my middle name begins with a C as well.
Got it. Okay. So wait, your parents did laser shows and you are from the Oakland area. So I'm assuming your parents were some super cool hippies doing laser shows.
I always kind of joke that they were computer hippies because my mom and dad worked in nanotechnology.
Oh.
As well. My dad worked on microchip design for 30 years, and they met at this convention called SIGGRAPH that I'm not even sure if it still exists, but I think it does actually because I found their website online and I found some of my mom's artwork in their archives.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, they met at a computer art convention back in the early 80s.
So who were they doing laser shows for?
It was more performance art than concert pieces like you normally see laser shows in these days.
Right.
We had a family friend who they would project lasers on her body as part of an art piece. And she was a professional dancer, so there would be lasers projected on her body while she was dancing, and that was like the whole piece.
That's awesome. So this was the world in which you grew up.
It's true.
That's all. Well, it sounds like some of that computer technology and artistic expression rubbed off because you have quite a list of education under your belt. It's pretty respectable.
Well, thank you.
You're a smart woman.
Only sometimes.
Only sometimes. Only when you apply yourself.
Just kidding.
So tell me about growing up in Oakland. And I know, actually, no, we're not going to start with that question first. Here's what we're going to start with. Reading your bio, there's the line about you getting into audio because of the passion, because you wanted to shape the audience experience. Why?
Yeah.
Why? And when did that little seedling start?
So when I was in high school, I used to spend all my money going to concerts and buying records. That was my major activity outside of school. And I've always been just so passionate about music, the way that it moves me when I listen to it. You know, people could call it like a transcendental experience, or, you know, the way that a lot of people are very passionate about their art. And I've always wanted to be able to convey that same sense of passion that I feel when I listen to music to other people. And I sort of came to realize that working on the technical side of things would allow me to shape the audience's experience so that I can try and make them feel that way going to their favorite concert the way that I do when I go see my favorite artists play, and let them have that moment, as it were.
Who were some of those early bands or concerts that you went to?
Oh man, there's just so many. It's hard to name. And some of the ones that have stood out aren't, necessarily, huge acts too. Like I remember there was this band that I saw open for, I think it was, I actually don't remember who they opened for, but they were called Vue, V-U-E. And I saw them years ago, and they were the opening band. Never heard of them before, and the performance was so moving. Like they had so much energy on stage that it was one of those shows where afterwards you immediately go out and buy the album at the merch booth or look them up online because it was just so awesome. You're like, how do they have so much energy?
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. So this was a passion early on. Yeah,
I would say I didn't always know that I wanted to be on the live sound side of it. That was until later. Like when I first went to school, I went to school for mixing albums. To work in the recording studio.
Yeah. And before we get to that, so music was in your family, it sounds like. And I know you took violin and guitar, and
Yep.
Going to see these bands, taking those instruments and being a musician, did you think early on that like, well, maybe I'm going to go the musician route?
Well, there's always a joke that kind of circulates through the engineering side of the industry that sound engineers are failed musicians, or, sound engineers are musicians that never made it. But I thought about going that route, but like I said, I think the technical aspect of it ended up drawing me more than the performance aspect of it.
Yeah.
I enjoy being sort of behind the scenes, making the show happen, rather than being in front of the stage and the center of attention. How
did some of that early, like in high school or in grade school, did you start gravitating toward the theater, world as well, and start working on plays behind the scenes and that kind of stuff? We had a theatrical department in high school, albeit small, and I participated in the acting side of it, but it wasn't really till college that I got into more the technical aspect of audio and in that sort of side. Although I did play in a couple bands growing up, in like when I was in community college, for a couple friends and I played in an all-girl punk band called Orphans. Nice.
We had one show.
Just one?
Actually, no, I'm sorry. I'm getting confused. We released one cassette, and then I don't think it even got released. I think it was more like we recorded it in a friend's basement, and we're hoping to release it. There's another band, though, that I had with some other friends called East Bay Doom Squad.
Nice.
And that was the band that we played one show total.
Wow.
At an underground warehouse space over in Oakland. That was fun. You
made your mark, dropped the mic. That was it.
Something like that.
Yeah, I like it. So you, like we said, you've gone through a few different schools and picked up a lot of experience. Tell me about making the decision to come out to Bard. And did you finish up at Bard or no?
No, I didn't. I actually only did a year at Bard.
Okay. just got too cold. It was too cold in the winter and too humid in the summer, right?
Well, I went to Bard straight out of high school. So I, did 4 years of high school and then went to Bard straight from there. And I did a year at Bard, and I first went actually to study creative writing and avant-garde electronic music. Sort of like John Cage, Karl-Heinz Stockhausen, that repertoire of music. And I did about a year, and then I had come from a pretty rigorous college preparatory school. I joke that it was a college preparatory school for misfit children because it was, pretty progressive. We took camping trips at the beginning of the end of the year, but we also had really academically rigorous classes like classes on origins of the Holocaust or advanced physics. But I think when I got to university, there was something sort of missing where I really wanted to see what was outside of just sort of academics and just get outside my bubble a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I ended up leaving Bard and I came back to the Bay Area where I'm from, and I got a job working at Edible Arrangements of all places, making fruit baskets. And I also worked at a record store, one of our local record stores. And I worked for like 8 months, saved up a bunch of money, and then I went on a backpacking trip through Europe for 2 months and just tried to get a bigger perspective on things. And then by the time I was done with the trip, I was sort of ready to go back to school. And I can't stress enough, especially to the younger folk, in that sort of age range of going out and just seeing the rest of the world and getting that experience before, I guess, quote unquote, committing to anything in your career. Or it just helps you get a better perspective on what the rest of the world is like.
Yeah, for sure.
Even for me, coming from someplace like the San Francisco Bay Area, it's still a bubble in its own right.
Yeah.
And seeing the bigger picture of what's happening in the world really helps you get a good perspective, I think.
Yeah, for sure. It's funny because a very good friend of mine is about to pull his kids out this August. They're 13, two twin, girls, and they're going to sell their place, and they live down in Pasadena, and go live in Guatemala, and then go live in Spain for a year, for simply that reason, to get the girls out, spend some time abroad. I was fortunate enough to spend some time abroad when I was about 6 or 7, and I said to my wife the other night, I was like, "Let's do it, man. Let's let's wait a few." Our son's only 3. Let's wait a little bit, because it informs. Whenever you do it, it informs your life experience, obviously, but particularly when you're talking about, I had some friends that took a year or 2 off and then went to college, and anytime you can get a little distance away from that normal track and then choose to educate yourself, I think you're doing yourself a big service, because you know why you're there, right? It's like people that go back to school later in life. You know why you're there, and you study with a purpose.
Absolutely. And it helps you maybe, see something that you maybe never thought you would have had interest in before, or
right.
Exactly. Come back to it with a sense of purpose.
Yeah. So at that point, were you thinking was that the time you're thinking, I'm going to go into the recording side of things and mix, or was that before?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was at that point. When I had come back, I had sort of realized that I wanted to get in the technical side of audio as opposed to the producing end of it. And that's when I started looking for options on how to explore that route.
Yeah. And so you were thinking specifically mixing at that time, or it was just sort of wide open, like, I want to get into making records?
Yeah, I think I definitely came into it with the same dream that a lot of people do of, mixing their favorite band, or going, being able to work with their favorite artist, and mixing the next great album kind of mentality.
Why mixing, not producing?
It's for the same reason. I wanted to sort of be able to take the artist's creative vision and be able to translate it into music through the technical side of things, that whole shaping their experience. And at that point, I was looking at it in terms of helping them craft their vision through recording. Got
it. So where did you start?
I found the City College of San Francisco, and they had a sound recording program there, which or recording arts, I should say. And it was affordable because it was through community college, which was, a big plus at the time. I looked into several trade schools, and they were out of my price range, both with financial aid and otherwise. I've had to pay for the majority of my education myself. I think I had some financial assistance that first year I went to school at Bard, and that was kind of it. As many people know, liberal arts schools is very expensive, so that kind of ate away most of all of my help from my family and financial aid and whatnot. So when I came back to it, I was sort of on my own in how I was going to fund my educational endeavor. So I was working 2 jobs, and community college seemed like a good route. And then I also heard they had a really good program. And it was there actually that I found the live sound program.
Oh, cool. So I'm just curious, because I just want to know, like, why was it important for you to go back to school, or to finish school, as opposed to just, you could go and work on tours and not have gone to school. You could go work in the recording industry and not have gone to school, and just sort of learned by doing.
Totally. And this actually comes down to something I tell people when they ask me, where did you go? Did you go to school to learn how to be an audio engineer? Because as you're saying, a lot of people get into the field just through experience. Maybe their friend hired them to mix their band, and then it snowballed from there. And I think at the time I didn't really know what all the options that were available, and I didn't have any experience at all. So looking, trying to get an educational background of it to me seemed like a good way of getting a solid foundation of just understanding the knowledge and learning what options were even available, because I didn't know what my options were at the time. Right.
And what about, as you looked around, family, friends, or just people in your circle, did you have people that you could reach out to and say, I'm thinking about this, I don't know what route to go, or, any mentors like that could help guide you?
When I first started, I was kind of on my own trying to navigate things, but as things progressed over time, especially when I started going to school at SF State after completing my 2 years at City College, I had several mentors come up that helped guide me a long way. One of them is actually my buddy Tom Lyon, who's a systems engineer, or a former systems engineer, because now he mixes a lot too. And I'd met him at the recording day at SF State, and because they had volunteers setting up for this recording day at SF State, where it's sort of like a workshop day where they invite kids from different schools to learn about the recording industry in general. And a local company that he works for here in the Bay Area was doing sound for it, and he was mixing front of house, and I was one of the volunteers, and we started shooting the shit. And am I allowed to swear on this thing?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Okay, great. And I showed him this sequencer, this analog sequencer that I had built out of a Spinal Tap lunchbox. And we started geeking out over, building electronics. And he pointed me in the direction of a bunch of really good books to read about learning about sound design and engineering. And we've been friends ever since. He's one of my earliest mentors for sure. But even before that was my teacher, Dana J., who got me my first into my internship in pro audio. And she's the reason I got into live sound. So I definitely want to mention her.
Okay. Yeah. Tell me about her.
Yeah. So I also had a mentor who's the whole reason I got into live sound, and that was my teacher, Dana J., over at City College of San Francisco, because I took her recording arts class, but then she also told me about the live sound class. And it's sort of from there that I found out about sound reinforcement, and it all kind of snowballed from there, because she got me my very first internship at one of the local pro audio companies. And like I said, it just kind of snowballed from there. So I have to give her a shout out as well.
What was her story? Do you know?
She actually started on the music production end because she was a singer in a band back in the day. And one of the bands either hired her or one of her friends hired her to do sound for their band. And that's how she got into doing live sound. And now she is one of the professor and tenures over at City College of San Francisco, and one of the co-directors of Sound Girls, which is really cool.
Oh, is she?
She runs our Bay Area. Yeah, she runs our Bay Area chapter.
Oh, I've never heard her name.
Yeah.
That's super
She's
cool.
sort of new to being heavily involved with the base of Sound Girls, but she started the Bay Area chapter.
Got it.
Recently, actually.
Wow. All right, Dana J.
Yeah.
That sounds like a singer's name. You and Dana, you guys could have been Arica Rust and Dana J.
Maybe in a past another dimension where
Exactly.
I still played guitar and violin.
That's right. And your folks are doing the laser show for it.
Exactly. It's funny. My dad told me that one of the only concerts they actually did lasers for was the Yanni show back in the 80s.
Wow. Wow.
So the only, of any known name musical artist that they actually worked for. Whether it's even true, who knows?
That's awesome. I just want to take it back a little bit. When you were growing up and you were going out to all these bands and seeing all these bands, were you struck not only by the artists, musicians on stage, but was there a part of you that sort of looked off to the wings or to front of house thinking, who the fuck are those guys? What are those people doing? What's that woman doing carrying that case or whatever it is? Was there a part of that? Like, maybe I want to do that? Or were they just not even on your radar at that point?
In the very beginning?
Yeah.
I think at very first, because I was playing music growing up, I definitely saw the, performers first, and wanted and was looking up to them more from the get-go. Mm-hmm. Like, oh man, I want to play guitar like, such and such performer on stage, or I'm going to learn that guitar riff because those licks are so awesome, and I want to try and emulate them.
Yeah.
But, the more I learned, when I started going to school, but also just, you think about who made this CD that I'm listening to, or how was this, your favorite record actually made? And you start looking into the people sort of behind the curtains. And I think that's where the interest started to come from, especially thinking about how can I shape people's experiences, and who are these people behind the records that you listen to?
Yeah. Aside from not knowing, not really having a background in it and jumping in for school in it, what other challenges did you find along the way?
In terms of like when I first started, or
first started, I guess coming out of school, I guess being in school, was there any prejudice of like, you're female, you should do this end of it, or that sort of thing, or even and then as you got out and started working?
I think the initial challenge always I feel like in this industry, when you're first getting into it, is just having a lack of experience,
mm-hmm.
and getting your foot in the door. That's always super challenging for everyone, I think. I've, up until this point in my career, I've gotten most of my job opportunities because I started out as an intern. I think I had my first official job through the internship I was in the internship program at City College of San Francisco, and we had to find an internship as part of the program. And so I, hit up a friend of mine who had been providing audio for some of the events that me and my friend had through in the Bay Area. And I was like, hey man, can I need to get an internship for my schooling. Can I come work for you for free for school credits? And he's like, sure. And then I started working with him, and then got to a point where they just, I asked, they decided to start paying me, and then I just kept working for them. And the same thing has happened. Actually, my current job, I started 7 years ago as an intern.
Wow.
When I was at SF State, because I found them through the internship program there. So there's this, challenge of trying to get experience when you don't have experience, and, having people give you the time of day. And it can be hard, depending on what your financial situation is, to be able to offer the ability to work for free.
Yeah.
And you also have to know at what point to realize your own worth when you've been an intern, and to start asking to be paid if you haven't been paid at that point already. But I think, in the end, people see your worth, and if you're working hard, have a good attitude, and it all can work out in the end.
Yeah, you put the time in, and you, right, like you said, you work, and people notice. People take notice, which is then usually how you get the gig to go on the road with somebody.
Yeah, or get that, or move on to being like a full-time employee for the company you interned with.
Yeah. So you're with a sound company now, full-time? Yeah,
I work currently for a company called Sound on Stage. I'm full-time there. I've been there about 7 years. And yes, it's an audio production rental house that's based here in the San Francisco Bay Area. So we provide audio rental services for events all throughout the Bay Area and elsewhere. We've done gigs outside the Bay Area as well.
And you tour do they send you out on tour? Because I know you've spent some time on the road as well. So how does that work? You go and do your gig, and then you come back to them. But I know you also want to go out on the road more.
Yeah. we did a tour last year. We provided audio support for the North American leg of the Ben Howard tour. So we provided the PA only, and it was a full L-Acoustics rig.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So your first time mixing, your first time finally standing at the desk mixing a show, what was it like?
It's funny because I think one of the first mixing gigs I ever had was definitely one of those just throw you straight into the fire kind of situations. It was, I'm trying to remember if it was doing monitors for this outdoor festival that no longer exists in the Bay Area, or if it was this play that I did. But I'll tell you about both of them just because I can't remember which one came first.
Sure.
And they're both sort of equally thrown into the fire, if you will. The monitor gig was on a PM5D. I had never used the console before. So I knew that I was going to be on this gig, and I spent about a week in our shop after hours, off the clock, sitting on this console trying to figure out how to use it before the gig, because I was determined that nothing would go wrong as much as possible at the gig, and that I would figure it out by the time the gig happened. And it was mostly electronic music acts on the stage, but there were a couple like band elements too. But I was just so nervous the entire time that I was trying to spend as much time as possible outside of work hours just prepping for it.
Yeah.
And learning the gear. And the other gig,
did it go well? Did you pull it off?
Went great. I did.
Good.
I did. And the other event was this kids play over in Burlingame, and it was one of those gigs where you get like a whole hodgepodge of gear and you have to just make it happen. It was the same thing. I hadn't used that particular console before. It was an M7, and there was 42 channels of wireless on kids, which if you've ever done kids plays is just challenging in itself.
Yeah.
And it was like 16 channels of one manufacturer that was in-house, 16 channels of like another manufacturer, plus like 8 channels that got added on last minute that the director brought from their home, plus like another couple channels that were thrown in that someone else had. And it's just this whole hodgepodge of gear, and trying to do all the frequency coordination in downtown, or not downtown, but like near the airport in San Francisco on a bunch of different gear was very challenging, to say the least. That was when I first became very acquainted with RF coordination and frequency coordination. And it was kind of one of those things where it's like, how am I going to make this work? I got to figure out how to make this happen, and then, do a bunch of research. And thank God for the internet in this day and age, because you can find all sorts of helpful solutions, if you do enough research on the internet.
This is quite true. Wow. That sounds pretty intense, man. That would have me pretty scared. Yeah. I don't have even close to the knowledge that you guys all do, but that sounds pretty harrowing, especially next to the airport. I mean, I know from like filmmaking using wireless lavs, you're in the middle of a take or something and it gets blown because you keep getting hits on your frequency and you got to stop and change it or whatever. Right. Not fun. But I didn't have whatever you just said, 42 channels or something.
Yeah. And it ended up working. I ended up using a copy of IAS, and then doing all the frequency coordination that way, and I was able to pull off the gig.
That's awesome. What are some of your favorite tours or runs that you've done so far?
Yeah, let's think. I really enjoy there's a festival that we do every year here in the San Francisco called Outside Lands.
Yeah, that's awesome. Never been, but I'd love to go.
Yeah, it's great because there's a really wide, eclectic range of music. I do front of house for the Twin Peaks stage. I've been doing it for the last several years, and it's a 3-night event, and there's always a different genre of music for the headliner each night. And so it's cool because I've found different artists at the festival that I might not have ever heard of just because they were maybe the opener or one of the earlier acts at the festival. And there's just a really nice eclectic range of music.
That's awesome. I know I got to make it out to Outside Lands at some point.
And
it's on the list.
You should.
Yeah.
And last year we actually got to do some really cool stuff with the system too, because like the client came to us with the issue of noise mitigation, which has been a big problem for music festivals, I think, everywhere. And one of the complaints was with low frequency energy spilling out to outside areas. So we actually came up with design, me and one of my friends over at L-Acoustics, to kind of keep the energy contained in the listening field, in the audience area of the valley, rather than having it spill out as much to the surrounding areas through manipulating the mechanical elements of the array.
Okay, so we're talking about sub-frequencies.
Yep.
Spilling out beyond the festival area, let's say, into a community.
Right.
And just being a nuisance.
Right. Or affecting, like, let's say, surrounding tents or other elements of the festival.
Gotcha. Yeah, I always have you been to Coachella?
I haven't, actually.
Because I don't know how big comparatively, like, Outside Lands is to Coachella, but I've been to Coachella 2 or 3 times, and I'm always shocked that, like, you know, when you get to the next tent, you can't really hear anything going on from the previous tent.
Oh, wow.
And somehow they keep that all set. And it is massive, I'll give it that, but I'm always surprised by that. And I was just at the Brooklyn Bowl a couple weeks ago, seeing a band. I don't know if you've ever been to a Brooklyn Bowl, but, you know, it's like a bowling alley mixed with a club.
Okay,
and there's no walls. And so, but I imagine the artists and it's a great place to play, aren't bothered by the fact that there are however 16 lanes or something of, you know, hipsters bowling while they're playing. And it's just set up in a really cool way. So, like, each section you go to, whether you're bowling or you're watching the music, you're over in the restaurant, none of it seems to sort of, you know, fold in on each other. There's, like, nice separation, and I have no idea how they get it done. It's awesome. It's people Very like cool. you. It's people like you, Arica, who figure that shit out. That's awesome. Wild. So how did you solve the issue? Did you do like baffling?
No, it's an outdoor venue,
right.
So acoustic treatment isn't an option in this particular case. So we mostly had to take advantage of the mechanical elements within the array.
Okay.
So we deployed the cardioid subwoofers that were angled to steer the subwoofer energy more towards the field and less of an arc where they're spreading the sub energies out among the listening area or off stage into the listening area. It was steered more inward so that it was going down the valley as opposed to the surrounding area. as well as utilizing the effects of a speaker called K1SB, which is a subwoofer, but more of a low frequency extender with the main PA, which is K2. And when you fly K1SB alongside K2 or K1, and I'm talking in for the specific manufacturer, L-Acoustics, it creates a comb filter on the opposite side of the subwoofer, basically, because you're creating like a sideways end fire array. So you get the effect of like a notch filter, and you get like a 12 dB cut around like 60 hertz on the other side of where the subwoofer is placed. So by placing the K1SB on stage of the K2, it focuses the energy, the low frequency energy, more towards the on stage side, so down the valley, and then creates this notch filter opposite that on the offstage side. They found this out because usually the typical way this is deployed is that the K1SB is flown off stage of the array, and that way you get that notch happening on stage, and you get less of that low frequency energy on stage where the artists are.
Interesting.
But that didn't really matter as much for this application because a lot of the acts were bass heavy. So we're more interested in having that low frequency rejection on the offstage side where the surrounding neighborhoods were the main factor.
Got it. So these systems are already sort of designed to make that compensation, and you guys just utilize that, or was this something you kind of tried to figure out on paper and then put it into practice? Had anyone ever tried that? Or, I mean, I guess it was...
Well, a lot of, the system design sort of comes from taking research that, taking research or things that you can do with these elements and figuring out new ways to do it. Like, how can I use what I know about this system, manufacturer independent, or just from the science of how I know these two elements are going to interact, and deploy them in this specific circumstance to get the effect that I want. So, like I always like to quote my friend Jamie Anderson, who works over at Rational Acoustics, when he says, my job as a systems engineer is to be a sound communist. I'm trying to make sure that everybody in the audience has the same experience everywhere. And so by utilizing different elements in a given application and thinking of what the best way to deploy them is, the idea is that you're creating the best experience for everybody and creating a system based on what the client really needs.
Yeah.
The artist.
Do you like a good challenge? Do you like when these types of things come up and you've got to solve an issue like this?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody loves a good challenge. That's what makes it fun, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So was this feedback? I'm just curious about this outside lands thing again. Like, was this feedback from the previous year about the energies, getting out into the surrounding neighborhoods, or was this something that came like first night and then there was the next day? It was like, we've got to solve this issue. So did you have time to prep it or what? Yes,
we had time to. It was actually a concern that the client came to us with.
Okay. Preceding the festival.
So we had time to design it a certain way.
And when you design it like that, I mean, are you able to go test that type of thing somewhere or no? Or you have to wait till the actual like sound check or whatever as you're setting up the system day before festival starts type of a thing?
Well, the the fortunate thing with living in the modern era is that there's a lot of really good tools available to people from all these different manufacturers where you can build models of what you think is going to happen. So while, everybody wishes that they had the budget to, test everything ahead of time and, come up with these elaborate systems and maybe mock them up in a field outside somewhere. But the reality of that actually happening is pretty slim, right?
Yeah.
So, but fortunately, these different manufacturers have modeling software where you can basically build your entire setup offline and predict what's going to happen based on how accurate your model is, which is really cool. And many different of the major manufacturers have this software available, which is awesome. And most of it's free too.
Wow. And so even like outdoor places, you can kind of put in what you think the variables might be and make that part of your model?
Yeah, to varying degrees, of course, because, you can only account for changes in temperature, humidity, wind. And then, of course, there's the, human factors as well. Like, you get to the gig and the trim height of the stage isn't what you thought it was going to be. Or, we actually decided to put a pillar right there in the way of where you are going to hang the PA. And then that, makes you look at the design a different way on site as well.
That's crazy, man. You spend a lot of time at school studying this stuff. Do you do anything to help teach folks below you, sort of give a lot of that knowledge back? Or are you still in grinding, learning mode yourself?
Well, I'm always learning. I always like to learn new information, and I definitely learn from both fellow engineers, other people in the field, and I'm a total audio dork, so I enjoy reading white papers and other people's research and books related to my field, just because there's so much to learn out there that you have to constantly be learning, and to keep up with the new technology and new research that's going on. There's just endless amounts of learning that you can be a lifelong learner. But I actually recently hosted a workshop for Sound Girls, who you are familiar with. That's how we were connected.
Yeah.
The group that is sort of like a global network for women and female identified and other people as well in the audio industry. It's all inclusive. That's one of my favorite things about Sound Girls, is that it's for everybody, really. I did a workshop for them on system optimization here for the Bay Area chapter.
Cool. And so are you usually pretty active in that chapter as well?
I try to be, as much as my work schedule allows. There's, of course, work conflicts, but I try to be as active as I can. Yeah.
How did the workshop go?
I got some positive feedback, which was great because I was definitely very nervous about it. But it's always fun to be able to geek about the stuff you're passionate about, and I made a whole Google slide presentation with pictures, and I think there were 8 people who showed up from our chapter, and some people Skyped in as well. So it was really fun. I enjoyed it a lot. In fact, I definitely see myself continuing education, both on the learning end, but also teaching people. I'm always open to talk about stuff, whether it's via email or otherwise as time, or in person or Skype with people, just to share knowledge and learn from others as well.
That's great. That's awesome. So when you're not doing sound, shaping an audio experience for people, what do you do? What do you do to have fun? And not that this isn't fun. This is lots of fun.
Dance is a big passion of mine. I always joke that I'm a semi-professional dancer, but a couple friends and I have a dance troupe out here in the San Francisco Bay Area. So it's a nice hobby outside of work, but at the same time, like, we dance to music. So the phrasing and musicality translates to both realms. And then, the attention to the detail in musical phrasing also translates into my work as well. So it's kind of cool because they're very different elements, but the same in a lot of ways too.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
How about violin and guitar? You still playing?
Oh, no. I wish. Sometimes I think about picking up instruments again, but no, I haven't played violin for years, or guitar actually.
Really?
For that matter.
You gotta pick it back up, man.
Maybe one day. Maybe.
But San Francisco, a great town to live in. So are you in San Francisco now, or are you back in Oakland?
I actually live in Berkeley proper.
Over in Berkeley. Cool. Great area.
It is, but I commute everywhere. Either to San Francisco, our shops in Hayward, or Oakland, wherever. It's kind of part of the game, getting around here.
Last couple things, Arica. How do people find you if they want to converse with you and get some knowledge?
Yeah, you can read. I'm on Facebook, like many people. So you can find me on my Facebook. It's Arica with an A, so Arica Rust, or my email, which is aricarust@gmail.com. Those are probably the best ways to get a hold of me right now.
Cool. So let's say I am, a young 17-year-old person, and I'm looking to get into the industry. What's your advice?
I'd say that a good attitude and a willingness to work will get you a lot farther just in general, and especially when you're starting out, than being worried about having the knowledge from the get-go. Because if you're willing to learn from people and you're just stay positive and excited and trying to absorb as much information and willing to work and work hard, people will show you what you need to learn technically and will be willing to share that information with you more if you have that sort of positive attitude. And to not get discouraged. I mean, it's easy to get jaded in this industry, but like I said, just staying positive and working hard really shines through in the end. I truly believe that.
Awesome. Final question. 10 years from now, where do you see yourself?
Oh, man. Well, like I said, I'm hoping to get back on the road, but I'm also hoping to continue with education. I want to keep on learning as much as I can, both from other people, from ongoing research, and hopefully to share that knowledge, maybe either through teaching workshops or, I don't know if I really want to lift speakers forever. So more of the design elements and the engineering aspect of things to continue with that line of work as well.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. This has been really fun.
Yeah, this has been cool. I appreciate it. Did you have jury duty today?
No, thankfully. I was on call this morning and I didn't end up getting called in, which is great. Nice. Because I had a gig to prep, so I had to go into the shop.
Good. Well, I'm glad that worked out, man, and I'm glad this worked out, and thank you for spending an hour of your evening with me.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
You got it. I appreciate it. And if you ever make your way east, let me know.
I will do.
Arica, thank you. Hope I did not embarrass myself too much as we chatted. Folks, stay tuned next week. Next week's episode 123, we got production manager Jason Zito. You probably just know him as Zito because I was instructed only call him Zito. You can follow us at Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Podcasts, YouTube, and Spotify, all as Roadie Free Radio. Check out the website, roadiefreeradio.com. Send me a note, man. You know I wants to hear from you. And in the meantime, y'all be safe out there. No roadies, no rock and roll.